are going live. Give it a second here. We are live.
Welcome to House to 20. I am the DM, Justin.
I play Phidias Mazarak, Warrior of Spring, a Drow Shaman.
I'm Wes, and I play Enceladus, a Vriloka Warlock.
Joe is missing this week, but he plays an assassin who, at this point in the story, is going by the name Cautious.
My name is Jake, and I play Celestine, the Warforged Paladin, as well as Thrax, the Human Monk.
And also missing this episode is Jake 2, who plays a Revenant Artificer.
And I'm Jeremiah. I play Vakias, who is a Minotaur Druid.
Okay, so we are trying a new platform. We're trying YouTube this time for a retelling. This will be our 5th installment of our recap of our story to that we've been doing for almost 7 years. Actually, it is 7 years, and so we're gonna dive right in and see if we can keep this ball rolling and hopefully finish our recap in 2, maybe 3 more episodes. We still have quite a ways to go.
Last time we got a whole year done, so
okay.
We'll see if we'll get a whole another year. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Let's try.
We have a lot of content left, so it's hard. Okay, so last time we left off, we were in the Plain of Solitude, which is a utterly frozen plain. You had been captured by the Serrani, who treated you fairly well, have been treating you fairly well, and they allowed you to meet back up with your companion Orla, who has new clothes and a new outlook on life. She has a glowing silver collar, and she now, like, her dragon mark, her ability to manipulate and speak languages is a tenfold strength, and she now can hear conversations of multiple things, and she's trying to tell you a little bit of what she has learned in the days when you've been separate, because you all have spent some time in jail and being not mistreated by the Serrani, but not treated as honored guests like Orla has. So Orla just sort of told you, hey, this is what's going on, this is what I've learned, and sort of the big moment was when she singled out Phidias and said, your relatives are related to the Serrani, and they are looking for the 80th member of their tribe, with the last name Mazarak. That's exactly the same as Phidias's last name, and they sort of hold this figure up on a pedestal, and sort of as a messiah, as it were, and so Orla at that point is sort of like, what do you say? And how did Phidias respond?
I think he's amused. He doesn't like being the center of attention. And so I'm trying to recall exactly what he said or did. It's a little bit difficult at this point, but I remember generally this was like, whoa, like, I got to take it in for a minute. And, he knows that, he knows his family line. His mom is a very high matriarch in his clan down in Zendrick, and so is his sister. And so he knows, they couldn't possibly be looking for me because, it's a matriarchal thing, and I'm a dude. So still, he was kind of shocked to know that there was a lineage connection, his family, to the as I recall. I don't know, Justin, if you recall anything different, but that's
Yeah, no, that's sort of it. I mean, I think the point of the story was to sort of make that a reveal and have your natural reaction to it. And I feel like you held up what Phidias would actually kind of say or feel in the moment and said, that's really interesting. Not really wanting to engage with that right now.
He's not one to like to be the center of attention. In fact, he has done everything to be in the undercurrent, so to speak, kind of be in the shadows. I mean, everything from his mask that he wears when he's in public, so he looks like a normal elf, uh, just to leaving his clan, to just, he's very much that guy. He does not like attention, drawing.
And I think if I recall, you also stated that that was your information to share and that we were not to share it without your consent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, Phidias was very much, he drew a line and said, this is mine, not yours, and I get to choose when and if I share this. So
He's very jealous for his privacy. We'll just say
yeah,
that.
but on some level, it was sort of a setup to at that point he could have come out to the Serrani and said, guess what, I'm here, I am the Mazarak, I am the savior, and Phidias was careful to let the rest of the party know, hey, this is for me to do, not for you,
Sensitive information.
because there was a little bit of a, hey, what's our mission here? What are we going to do? Is it a diplomatic mission? And is this part of diplomacy? Is this something that we offer? And you said in no uncertain terms that it wasn't the time, and it was for you. So, which is very, that's important for the story, because the next part of the story is the decisions that were made because of that information. I think if Orla sort of said, hey, like, I'll let you have that, you just let me know and I'll spread the word, because she is very much a megaphone on two legs, and would have been able to kind of use that in collaboration. But anyway, Joe, thanks for joining us. You didn't miss much. So
sounds like you're having a great talk. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my dog.
And your dog, for sure. So I do actually remember a conversation of like, how are we going to be diplomatic here? Because the Serrani are kind of, they're allowing you to have better accommodations than prison. And Orla has given you some key information about what she's learned about their history. And I'm trying to remember back to whether you had a decision to help or not to help at that point. Does anyone remember?
I don't quite. I feel like a lot of really important decisions were made, but we don't really have too clear of a recollection. A lot of it happened pretty quickly.
It was really fast. I felt like we were just starting to think about it right before that big commotion showed up after that banquet we went to.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't even really think about it too much, and then all of a sudden we had some random escape that we were able to make.
When did you guys actually go and talk to the giants and the dragons? Because something happened where you were able to, like, you had to go investigate
Yes.
people that had, like, there were giants at an outpost by the edge of a frozen lake, and you were told to go out. You remember that?
That's right.
Yeah, the Serrani wanted us to
how that
prove
turned out.
our trust after the banquet, and
Yeah.
sent us on a mission to go take care
That's
of some
exactly
giants.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you
And,
found is you found a giant outpost, and you killed a few, and they, they seem to actually, one of you could understand giant. I don't
That's
remember who
Vakias,
that
isn't
is.
it?
Well,
Yeah,
Vakias
but Vagias wasn't there yet.
wasn't in
I
the
was
story
playing
yet.
Rook at the
Oh,
time.
wasn't it a Daffodil?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Daffodil. He spoke giant.
Right. That's right. Our little goblin friend was still with us at that point. And the giants were saying they were saying things that were sort of friendly and not offensive. But you guys still killed him anyway, I think. I don't know if a dragon came down at that point or something. And I don't.
No, what happened was we went in. We had to go into the place that was hiding, and we ended up battling that demon thing that was.
That's what happened, right?
And then the Rock of Chaos turned us all into kids.
Into babies,
Right,
and then the
that's right.
dragon and the giants helped turn us back into adults.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So there was a week after the banquet where we did something where we journeyed to a giant outpost, and I wasn't there for that week.
Yeah.
But there was I something about fighting giants or something.
Yeah.
But once I returned, I first said we are at a giant outpost. We go down to the glowing hole and find a place full of magical energy. So there must have been on the outside of the giant outpost some kind of a something to enter.
Yes.
But this place full of magical energy, Celestine walks right in and has a seat. We explore and find a demon. When we try to rouse Celestine, he is rooted to the spot. Rook finds two full vials of dragon blood, and Celadus feels the Rod of Chaos drawing her into a circle in the middle of the room. Is this all starting to ring a bell?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
And so there was this big kind of magical circle, and everybody was feeling very like tingly and strange. Gers cautious, grabs a vial of the dragon blood and leaves the circle. He wasn't having it. But as soon as the other four, meaning Celestine, Rook, and Celadus, and Root, are all in the circle, they feel as if they are falling.
Mm-hmm.
And they fall for days. And they're very happy as they fall. And when they stop falling, they are in a similar room, but different. On the wall, they see a dissected thing.
Yeah. It's all of its limbs and its torso and head were all sort of like still like strung together, but they were all sort of pulled apart and plastered on a wall.
I think I remember it looking at me or reaching out to me because it sees that I have a Rod of Chaos. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And it reaches out and it adds something to the Rod of Chaos. Right?
Yeah.
Part of its like spine kind of wrapped around it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a rib bone. It was a
Oh,
black rib bone, and it comes out and it like twists itself around the handle of the Rod of Chaos. Yeah.
And so was it revealed at this time what this entity was? Was it made known?
No, it was.
I have written down what it is.
I remember Celestine having a connection to it.
Yeah, I feel like I knew pretty much, like once I locked eyes with it, I knew exactly what it was.
Yep, Celestine knew exactly what it was.
And what was it?
It was the one true creator.
That's right.
So that was that is Celestine's unknown deity.
His patron deity.
And so what I have recorded is, as Celestine approaches, he feels communication in his head of love and acceptance and heart stuff, love stuff.
Yeah.
The others feel other thoughts that are more like curiosity and invitation. But for Celestine, it was very accepting, like a sense of belonging.
And it was all telepathic communication through feelings rather than through words. There wasn't any sort of words. It was all just through feelings.
When the then the rod of chaos was extended, and the black rib came out and wrapped around the rod. The rod feels at peace for the first time, as does Celestine. So the one true creator radiates peace, closes its eyes, and seems to be at rest. All is well. The group sits and meditates and find themselves once more in the room they began in. And I don't know if anybody else has anything to add about that experience, but it seems to be, I don't know if they were really physically transported, if it was all in their head, a dream, a trance, or
I seem to remember the one true creator sharing a little bit more about that rod. Isn't that where it was revealed to us that the rod was an ancient being trying to reassemble itself?
Yeah, and it was in pieces that were scattered across the plains, and yeah, that is where it was revealed. And I think it was again like revealed through sort of a telepathic sort of communication to Enceladus about like what this is that you have. And so I mean, if you think about it, it started out as just a rod, and then attached to it was a giant claw on the end, and that was in one part of Eberron, and then in the plane of solitude, the rib from a god kind of wrapped around it. I'm trying to remember. You guys did get information on some of the potential other items that would connect to it. I don't remember who told you that. Actually, I do remember who told you that, and we're not there yet. But there was communication about what other potential pieces go on this thing, this creature, this being that's trying to reassemble itself. But I don't think at this point you guys knew that that's exactly what it was. You sort of knew, oh man, it seems to be collecting pieces, and it seems to be getting stronger. And so I'm trying to remember if did I put in a mechanic that you actually it started to make you roll more often.
Yeah.
After this piece
I remember at one point there was a whole change up of the 100 potential
there was a new
outcomes.
set. The other thing that happened
Yeah.
was previously it was at the beginning of it was anytime you rolled a daily, but now it was every time we rolled a daily in addition to every time we started an encounter.
That's right. So at the beginning of an encounter, you had to roll a D100 in order to go off of this list and do the next thing. And now it was it was both. Yeah. So as pieces were added, the chaos grew in this weapon that was also somewhat of a being, some entity, chaotic entity. And it was becoming at this point harder to predict or control or have any sort of command over. And so as soon as you all came back to this room, I want to say you saw that demon that had just been kneeling there and meditating, and so immediately the rod of chaos had to roll because that was the new rule. You rolled the D100 and it turned you into a kid.
Yeah. So in the time that you were gone, Cautious, my character, the half-orc assassin, left. He went back to the city. So I think either you were transported out of there and he didn't know what was going on, so he just left. But as soon as you got back, Celestine has this feeling as though he needs to be the best he can be. He's got like this new motivation. So he runs into the room with the demon and demands an explanation. And the demon turns, stretches, and looks at the room with the face of evil. He begins muttering in Abyssal, and you had to roll for initiative, and that's when the rod went off. When it becomes Enceladus' turn, she needs to roll the Rod of Chaos, and it's a number 100, which is age-appropriate content. Is the name
Yeah,
of
that was the name of it. And I actually have that one written down, so I can actually read what the actual happenings are. It's one of the neutral but chaotic scenarios.
It was very chaotic.
Yes. So it says A bank of fog manifests from the north. Everyone present starts to hear drums, and then tin whistles, then small feet marching. The sound is coming from within the fog. It's steadily approaching. Is that children singing? The fog rolls over the battlefield. You're engulfed by a warm, comfortable feeling. All you can see is white. The fog clears in a few moments, and all you can see is children where your allies and enemies once were. Wait, you look at your own arms and legs. You're a child too. That is, or is that? No, it can't be. Rook before undeath. So, just for context, Rook is a revenant, and no one, even himself, he doesn't remember who he was as a child, and no one had seen him or known him in this party before then, and he couldn't describe. But all of a sudden, you saw Rook as a dwarf and as a child. So it says. Your party and your enemies have all been transformed to your prepubescent selves. You're wearing clothes from your youth and holding wooden versions of the weapons you held previously, all except the Rod of Chaos. What will you do now? The conflict you were in, is it worth fighting anymore? Does anyone have a ball? Do we just start playing? That's what happened, and that was a 100, which is, I guess it has the same chance as any other number coming up, but it was definitely
everyone but Celestine.
There was an exception.
Yeah, that's right.
Existence was still Celestine, and the rest of us are snot-nosed kids.
Right.
And Celestine's weapon is attached to him.
Right, but also as a young, I mean, you weren't a youngster anymore because you weren't ever a child. Warforged never have a young period in their lives. They don't grow up the way they're just created as they exist. They're not. They don't have an adolescence. They don't grow up.
You didn't get like reformatted to factory, default or something like that.
Not turned to Celestine.
But apparently that doesn't apply to demons. Apparently demons can be babies because Celestine looks down at the baby demon and
squashes him like a bug.
That's right. Squishes him.
Which was
greasy, bloody bones crunch. Baby.
A little bit of a horrifying scene because, it is a baby, but it is a demon.
Celestine says, remember what you said?
I do not remember what I said.
You said it was worth it.
Sounds like me.
In the corner of this room, after you, I suppose, scraped your boot off, in the corner is a skeleton of a creature that may be the same species as the one true creator.
Mm-hmm.
Any elaboration on that?
I mean, it's whatever you guys remember because there is elaboration on that. But it's not for me at this point.
That's all I have written down. Does anybody remember anything?
I don't. I was just beside myself. There was so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at this point, as a player, my character didn't know a single thing about the one true creator. So for me, it was just kind of like information overload.
Yeah,
overwhelming.
Well, and so to give a little bit of context, in the D&D world, a paladin, who that's the class that Celestine is. A paladin gets their power and pretty much their inspiration from a single deity. And so for a Warforged that was just newly created, to not know or have ever communicated with their deity, even to the point of still being able to use power and have intention, but also not any marching orders or any communication with their deity, to all of a sudden discover and have a connection with their deity, I can imagine that it would be very overwhelming, and sort of life changing too.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was overwhelming and life changing.
For sure.
I've written down no one has any skills.
Yes, that's right. Because you have not yet
We
learned,
were kids.
because you were kids and you had wooden swords to swing around. And stuff.
Anyone else have memories of being a child?
Well, I was playing Rook at the time, and I asked Justin if I could kind of brainstorm some childhood memories of Rook,
Mhm.
and I came up with a little bit of like some pockets of backstory that of like very vague memories,
Mhm.
but I never like I don't know if I actually shared them with anyone,
You never did.
Nope.
You never did.
and I don't know if I guess I at the time I was subbing for Rook, so I didn't feel like it needed to be canon, but I just was interested in doing it.
Yeah.
So at this point, even up to date in our campaign, we still don't know Rook's childhood memories. So that we'll leave that. Leave that. Don't spoil it for us.
So Jeremiah, did you ever share them with Jake too?
I think I sent it to him as a text message, but I don't know if he actually ever did anything with them.
You guys
Which-
should coordinate and correlate and come up with a plan. Or
Which,
like-
which is totally fine. It's completely up to Jake too whether he wants to share those or not. I mean, all of you have opportunities to play out your backstory or storyline or whatever. There's an option for all of you to pick up what you've created and ask the party to run with you towards it. And I'm more than happy to accommodate for any of that. You know, whatever it is, but it's just up to you. So
at this point, Cautious, my character, the half-orc assassin, got back to the city and takes a nice hot bath. All by
oh
himself.
right, that's right, because you had
I didn't know where anybody was, so I just was like, well, I'll go back to the city.
so again, for you being absent that day, we just we figured that you had gone.
Oh, I was there. I think I was there for this part.
Well, but for the period before, so that we didn't play your character for you. I think we had just allowed your character to go explore somewhere,
Okay.
and that's why you avoided this, because
I see.
you personally were gone the week before and weren't included in the festivities period.
Got
So anyway,
so Celestine is trying to get Enceladus to use the rod. I don't know if
yes.
any-
At
Yeah,
that
we
moment,
were. Yeah,
like,
we were
after
trying to
everything?
figure out how to use the rod in the hopes that we could just go through the list until we hit 100.
Because you guys did know the rules that if you re-roll the same number, then it does the opposite. It will revert you back to the way it was before. And we learned that with the gender swap that happened with
Right.
Enceladus. Right? Has that happened at this point, or is it? Are you still a male?
I don't even remember.
No,
don't
you
even-
were
You're still a
female by
male at
then.
this point.
So we had
and-
already
Really?
figured
Really?
that out from Enceladus's necklace, which has broken and fixed itself 3 times now.
That's
Right.
right. That's right.
What are the odds?
I
1 in
mean, they're
100.
1 in 100. So
It's, it's like
right.
So by this point, Cautious meets with Orla and breaks the news to them.
Yes.
And Orla goes off to talk to the Serrani. The night passes without incident with the kids. And in the morning, Orla says that they're going off to find them, meaning the kids and the Serrani. And Cautious wants to accompany them. They take dragons. And the trip only takes 20 minutes.
Yes.
So we get to the area, go down to the hole, we find Celestine and the kids.
Yep. They
and
haven't decided what they're doing yet.
But at this point, the Serrani realize that Celestine has met their deity after recounting their experience. So at this point, they must have seen the markings on him, and Celestine explained it.
And the forge in your chest glowing, and
Yeah, they realize that I am a messenger of their deity, and they actually get pretty stoked about it. if I
yes, they
recall.
do. It's kind of like the Ewoks and C-3PO.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Oh.
actually really an accurate analogy.
It's pretty much it,
Although Celestine's not quite as nice as C-3PO.
right.
Mm. That's Jawa. But anyway, while talking,
Very good. Very good.
while talking with the Serani, a giant rides up and kills a few Serani and frees our dragon, our ride.
Yes.
And the Serani try to spread out, and the dragon is just mowing them down with his ice breath. And we secure the kids, and Orla wants to talk with the giant. And I think at this point you were playing Orla again. At this point, I was not playing Orla.
Yeah,
I was only playing cautious.
that's right.
So she does, and she talks with the giant and recommends that we go upstairs. She recounts an enlightening story, much different than the Serrani's take. And this is when we really got a different perspective. So the dragons are persecuted in Solitude. They want to get back to Eberron. Also, like the Serrani, everybody agrees Solitude sucks. But the dragon that we're talking to is the mother of Kalamachia.
It was actually the father, wasn't it?
The father of Kalamachia.
And we realize that because Celestine remembers freeing Kalamachia when we encountered her the first time.
Yeah,
because he just got a good feeling about this dragon and the chain that was around her. So he, out of curiosity, just said, "Would you happen to know anyone named Kalamachia?" And recanted the tale of how he and the group helped free Kalamachia, and instantly got a whole lot of favor with this guy.
Yeah. And of course, the parent is overjoyed to hear she's alive in Eberron, and she also recounts some of the history of the Rod of Chaos. So somehow this dragon knew.
That's right. That's where you guys got the information about the pieces of the rod and how it wants to put itself back together. That's right.
And she also thinks that maybe they can reverse the magic of the kids. And this dragon's name is Iziri. I have Iziri as her name.
Okay.
Cautious tells Iziri he would like to help the dragons get home. And the giant seems surprised by us as we load onto the dragon for a ride. They aren't really sure what to make of us. And so we arrive at an encampment, and they recount the dragon's history, the dragon's version of their history with the dragons and the giants in Solitude.
And do you remember what that history was?
No, go ahead and elaborate.
So 40,000 years ago, Eberron time, the giants ruled Zendrick, and they had elven slaves, and they were friends with the dragons. And there was a detachment towards the end of the reign of the giants. There was a detachment of miners, because there was a bunch of Sybaris shards down in Zendrick, because they kind of rain from the sky and they kind of fall onto the surface, and so they three giants, two giants were in charge of 80 elves that were mining Sybaris shards, and it was a pretty typical day. They were just kind of, overseers for their slaves, and it was around lunchtime, and one of the giants' mates came and brought them lunch, and just at the same time, there were a pair of dragons that were flying over from Arganessen, and they came down to chat with them. And then for some reason that is still a little bit unknown in the history, a portal opened up, and all of them were swept into that portal. So you have dragons, giants, and elves that have been swept into solitude, and all but one elf of the 80, and that's where the family line of Mazarak comes into play. But once they were sent into solitude, the power dynamic shifted, and the slaves became the oppressors, and the oppressed were the giants and the dragons. And so, yeah, the the whole history of what happened after they were flashed into this foreboding plane sort of made the current history of the races in solitude.
Did they happen to mention why the power shift occurred? Because the 79 elf drows were the slaves to just the two giants or three giants,
Well,
something like that.
yeah, there were two giant taskmasters that were sort of making sure the slaves kind of were in control. I know the history, but I'm not really sure if you would have found that out or known about it. But it has to do with the magic. The giants and the dragons, like the giants were really interested in dragon magic, and they didn't really have the strength of mind to wield it in Eberron. But that's what caused the fall of the giants. They meddled with dragon magic, and they addled their own minds, and opened portals um, to chaos, and let in the Dalkir, and were constantly fighting a battle with something they didn't know or understand, using magic that they didn't have any right to use. But as soon as they were sent into this other plane, their locus of magic was shifted, and the Serani quickly realized, after being able to kill a dragon, the dragon's blood is powerful and they could use it. And so they were able to quickly and easily subdue their captors, and then decide to pursue harvesting dragons or dragon blood, and use that in their magic, and moving forward. So that's sort of what the high level concept is. It wasn't easy, but it also, it didn't happen overnight. It was very much slaves are running away. They figured out a way to survive. They fought, just using primitive tools. They finally took a dragon down and realized that they had something here. Anyway, that's the high level.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the dragon blood, that's how Isri and these dragons decide that they can help restore these children. So they begin a ritual. And there's a dragon there that they are going to bleed for its blood, and they bleed it with an inch of its life. And the kids sleep, and I don't know if there's more to the ritual that you want to go into, but when they awake, they are in fact restored. Which means Rook is once again a revenant, but with new knowledge of his childhood.
That's right.
Enceladus remembers that the wizard in the prison knew how to operate a portal, but he needed dragon blood. And that being the Valerian.
Yes.
The wizard that we met of the 12.
Right.
And so now we have access to dragon blood. So we have a council to determine the best course of action. Go back to the Serani, rescue the wizard. Something else, help the dragons, help the giants. So we decided to try and unite the three races peacefully, diplomatically. The giants and the dragons are not willing, however. They just want to go home. So the giants and the dragons are not willing to work with the Serani at all. So apparently the best we can come up with is a promise that we will try to set them free. And they give us a ride back. And when we and back to the Serrani city is where they
Yep.
go.
Or just outside of it. They didn't drop you right in the center. It was just outside of it, so you guys could walk in from there.
And so we get there and we have dinner with some leaders who were women leaders, females
Yes,
of the species.
right.
They want a map to the dragons, but we refuse, and they're being very persistent about it. They want the map. I don't know if they told us they want a map to go and find them and kill them and enslave them and all that, but we got the idea that we didn't want to give them that information. And anything else that anybody
Phidias kind of
remembers?
led us on to that.
What's that?
Phidias kind of led us on to that, saying like, do not trust them. Don't just give it to them and expect them to follow up on their end of the deal.
Yeah. Anybody else have any memories about that encounter with the dragons, the giants, surrounding up to that point?
I remember that it was adding those perspectives made it even harder for you guys to figure out what you were actually going to do. It was definitely not a cut and dry, ooh, here's the enemy and here's enemy help. You came into Solitude because of Nargu Rockturner, who asked you to be diplomatic and not just fight and not just kill. And so you were given the perspective of the Serrani on some level through Orla. You were given the perspective of the giants and the dragons through working with them. You were also given the perspective of the one true creator, if that even added anything to the whole. And then you were expected to make a decision on what your best course would be. And you guys chose diplomacy. Instead of fighting alongside the dragons and the giants, you chose diplomacy. You stuck to what your original request was. Which
I seem to recall feeling really good about that. Like, hey, yeah, we can get these three to unite. We'll get them all back home. It'll be great. And it was very short-lived because they wouldn't work together.
They just said, tell us where our enemy is so that we can destroy them. And you're like, nope, I'm not going to tell you where the enemy is.
It's also interesting that the giants and the dragons were like, well, no, we're not going to work with the Serrani. And they seemed satisfied with our word that we would try to get them free, and then brought us back to the Serrani.
I remember it being more of a complex conversation where they were sort of thinking, I think that we can trust you. It wasn't like they just sort of said, yep, that's it. It's all riding on you guys.
What was involved there? Why would they? Was it something to do with Isri and Kalamachia and that trust built there or something?
I want to say that there wasn't enough trust for them to say you guys are going to save us. I think they just were kind of saying, well, we'll let you do what you want to do. We still want to fight. But if you aren't going to be with us, we'll just drop you off at the border, sort of thing. I don't know that they were 100% behind you guys trying to go the diplomatic route. You might have gotten that.
Remember that they had serious misgivings about but we were pretty insistent about it.
Yeah. That's kind of what I remember too. I don't feel like it was an actually like, oh yeah, okay, you're gonna solve all of our problems. It was more of a, all right, whatever. If you're not with us, I guess we'll just kind of drop you off.
So we didn't necessarily make any promises to them, and they didn't.
No.
Did they mention what they were going to keep doing? Are they just going to keep doing their thing in Solitude?
Their whole point was to try to gain more strength and more numbers. If you, I mean, I can't tell you, like, if you would have pressed them and asked them what their plan is and really wanted to go with what they would have done, I had a whole plan for that too. I mean, there are several things that they would have asked you to do other than talk to the Serrani. There was a whole path that I'd created for that part of it. But you guys were very adamant about diplomacy, and so I let you go that direction. I mean, there's stuff that I probably, it's not a resolved issue, so I can't really tell you what, what they would have had you do, but
I'm pumping you for information and as a refresher for us, so we have
Right.
more to
Yeah,
go
so
on.
again, I think you guys definitely drove the diplomacy side of the conversation, and so I went with that. You know, you could have driven the, well, hey, you know, we see you, dragons and giants, as being, you know, like a valid ally. What should we do? You know, like you guys were very much on the side of like, well, we were, you know, the Serrani, you know, maybe we can just talk this out, and um everyone else will, you know, all the giants and dragons were like, nah, we've already, like, this isn't, we've been here for 1,000 years, you know, we're not gonna try and talk this out at this point. We just need to get strong, and we need to overtake them. So
Yeah. And
but
then right away the Serrani were equally like, oh, you were there, you were with them, tell us where they are. Yeah, like
yeah,
we
yeah,
don't want to talk about it, we want to kill them.
because we're talking about like a 1,500-year conflict, and not anything that's like oh, let's change our minds, let's go the diplomacy route, or yeah, let's shake hands, especially because, you know, I mean, you would have had to gain a lot of credibility with both of the sides before you had the opportunity to do that. And you could have done work for both the giants and dragons and the Serrani in order to increase your credibility with all of them, and potentially have brought them all to a table of sorts and a conversation around working together to get out. But you know, the pieces weren't yet in play for you to do that. Even though you tried, they were not. Um,
Well,
so,
why didn't we stick around? Why didn't we figure it all out? Why didn't we talk it out? Well, I'll tell
well,
you, as the
yes,
Serrani were getting angry and angrier and angrier with us about not giving up the location, and suddenly some explosions started going off, and Orla is hurried away. The Serrani take her and hurried away, and military figures start showing up, and there's a general there, and he begins leading us out. And when we get out of the area we're in into the open, we see that a portal has been opened up, and Usador is leading an army
Oh
yes,
my.
in solitude,
yeah, he has come through this
fighting the
portal.
Serrani.
Yep, and they're attacking the Serrani.
Right. And so the general brings us out, and he indicates that we should begin fighting against Usador.
Yes, and Usador catches your eye and sort of gives you the wink wink nudge nudge to start fighting the Serrani alongside him.
Yeah. So Pickles starts fighting immediately. Starts fighting the Serrani.
That's right.
He's the first. He's always the first. Like he's gonna. He just
That's his thing.
goes right away. Celestine begins protecting him because that's what Celestine does. Pickle does something rash and violent, and Celestine protects his party. Cautious slips into the shadows. That's kind of what he does. Phidias is stunned, and I don't know if he's stunned because he doesn't know what to think, or if because he's hit, but he's not effective. But the
Phidias
general,
was-
what's
yeah.
that?
Phidias expecting to have some diplomacy, and instead we're led right into this battle, and we got Usador, who's our ally, coming through the portal. And Phidias is sitting there trying to think about, what do I do? And then Pickles begins to attack, and Phidias is sort of like, what the hell? Like, he just, so yes, he is stunned. He doesn't know what to do.
The general, the Serrani general, who is by us, is shocked that we are not fighting with him, and he lets out a war cry. And so suddenly we are surrounded by Serrani. But first, there are tremors, because apparently during this fight, Enceladus rolled her rod of chaos.
Yeah.
Well, it had to. Didn't.
It's
get
true.
to.
Yeah,
to.
it's
Right.
something that has to happen. So it's not like I have any control over it. Yeah, like I really don't.
So the ground shakes, and buildings begin to swell. That was the end of our encounter for the night. We had to wait 2 weeks to find out why the buildings were shaking. So 2 weeks later, there is chaos. Pickles flies to Usador and asks, "What's the plan, Stan?" Battle is raging all around us. Cautious ends up sneaking behind and strangling the general. Most everyone else then starts attacking the general, hoping to end the conflict early without too much loss of life. Again, the Rod of Chaos rolls, and it's snow. Frost covers everything, which is, I mean, not
Kind of
not too-
ridiculous.
yeah, not too strange in Solitude. But for some reason, it was extra cold, and everybody is slowed. Everybody, so we can't even fight effectively. Enceladus eventually does end up killing the general, and the general drops this horn. A nearby Strani picks it up and blows this horn, and 3 of those huge screamers descend down from the cliffs. So Cautious hides again, and everybody else is just fighting out in the open. Finally, like one by one, they start taking cover. Enceladus takes cover. So we're getting attacked by these screechers instead of running. I don't know why.
Instead of running.
Rook has an idea, so he tries to pick up this horn and blows it. But when he blows it, like nothing happens. He thought maybe he could call off the screamers or something. And I have a quote here. How many of you are thinking you should have run through the portal on the last turn? Oh, that's from Justin, the DM. It wasn't going well.
Yeah, it was not going well.
Eventually, it says Dumbledore.
It's not Dumbledore, it's Usador.
Usador shoots down a screecher, but it gets back up. It seems like we might be losing. Pickles summons a crocodile, which is fighting and eventually starts dragging Phidias towards the portal. And people are like now using their skills and talents to start trying to escape towards the portal. They're getting the idea that this isn't going well.
Doesn't
one by one. Go ahead.
Don't we? I seem to recall Rook using his oil slick to get us through the portal.
Yes, exactly. So he throws out his springboard, and he also does some sliding, uses his slick stuff, and so people are like sliding towards this portal trying to escape. Eventually, Enceladus turns into bats, hooray, and flies through. But then, as we're slowly getting away, eventually 3 of these Serrani gang up on Usador and they crit on him. And the last thing that Celestine, I'm sorry. So Celestine, it's just Celestine and Phidias. Celestine hurls Phidias through the portal, but he's not able to get himself through. Usador's fighting, Celestine's fighting, the 3 screechers are attacking. The last thing Celestine sees before he finally gets clear and gets into the portal is a mob hacking at Usador. He's surrounded and he kind of like disappears into the zombie mob. Celestine gets through the portal, we're all through, and we appear in Jaunt's tower in the Citadel of the 12 in Korth in Eberron.
Okay, one question, like, did we actually see Usador die, or did we maybe make that assumption and never actually see his body dead? I don't know.
This is what it says.
See him die.
This is what it says. The last thing Celestine sees is a mob hacking at Usador. ... We appear in Jaunt's tower.
Okay.
Celestine has said, I saw them Celestine's pretty convinced they're dead. But those of us who have read comic books.
Right.
As soon as Jaunt sees Celestine come through the portal, she powers it down. Where's Usador? Where's Usador is what Cautious asks. And Celestine says, he's dead. Are you sure? Celestine says, yes, I saw him die. That's what he said.
I mean, I didn't. They completely had him piled. As far as Celestine knows, that's dead, man.
So we're back in
Yep.
Eberron. It's been 2 years since we left. 2 years have passed in Eberron time. In the few weeks that we've been gone. So it has not felt like 2 years to us.
Right.
But there have been attacks. There have been attacks by Usador. And Usador has sent more than 100. He sent hundreds of adventurers through into Solitude,
Be right back.
doing whatever Usador sent them to do, to fight. None of them have returned. Only us. Usador finally went through himself to bring back as many as he could. We know how that ended. So now that he's fallen, Jaunt is the leader of the 12. The council wants a day to think about this and process. The 12 set us up with a home base in Korth, which is an apartment, a house. We decided to name it the Chrysalis. And there's one other thing that they told
so
us.
let's can we splash Korth on the map real quick again, just to remind
Yeah, give me just
everyone
a
where it
second
is?
here.
No problem.
Can you go ahead and ping where you want me to be?
You bet. It's in Karnath. It's the capital city of Korth. That's where the Citadel of the 12
That's
is
on the
located.
eastern side. Yeah, give me a second here.
It's sort of in the middle. It's above the Mournland.
Yeah, I just found it. Let me go ahead and get that live on the stream.
Okay.
All right, that is live for the viewers.
Okay, so that is the city that the Citadel of the 12 is located, and where you they have given you accommodations to sort of create a. They want you close because you have just come back after 2 years of being in the place that they sent you to find information, or the place that they wanted you to sort of do work for them. So yeah, they set you up with an apartment. It's beautiful, understated, and there's enough rooms for everybody.
I'll switch back to our cameras here.
For some reason, we thought it was like our retreat, our spa, and there's a place locally, a spa locally to us called the Chrysalis, and so somebody suggested, oh yeah, we'll name our home base the Chrysalis.
Nice.
No.
Yeah.
But there is another really important piece of information that Jaunt shared with us regarding the day of mourning, and they discovered. She tells us that they have discovered what caused the mourning. I'll let the game talk about it.
So this is really big in the lore of Eberron. Keith Baker, who is the mind behind this this whole world of Eberron, doesn't ever specifically tell you what the cause of the giant destruction and explosion that happened to cause the end of the Great War. And he does that on purpose because he wants you to be able to write that into your story if you want. And I took that opportunity to write in the reason for the giant explosion and the cause of the mourning, and the big giant place on the map that is dead, is the dead zone, and has a really big chasm in the center of it. And my reason is the Serani are trying from the plane of solitude to create a rift so they can get back to Eberron, and they are the cause of the giant arcane explosion that destroyed an entire nation and ended the last Great War. And hopefully that's that's the answer that you have written down, because I
Yeah.
might have given some. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Good. I'm
Yep.
glad.
Yep.
But that
Why I let you
information,
tell it? I honestly let you tell it because I wasn't sure if that was something that just the 12 told us, like
Yeah, it is.
as some propaganda, or if it was something that like they proved it arcanically, or I don't know. I just want to make sure I didn't miss
Yeah.
anything.
No, it wasn't propaganda. And I don't feel like anything, except for maybe some things that Usador was sort of was telling you. None of what the 12 have told you is in any way deceptive, or in any way trying to manipulate you at all. That wasn't the intention, and maybe you felt that way, especially with what Usador was saying or his actions. And maybe with some of the ambiguity that Nargu Rockturner brought in his conversations with you. But I feel like you did have the opportunity at any point to roll, sort of, some sort of like intuition to try to see if
Right.
these people are trying to lie to you, and you've never gotten that vibe. They're lying. So here John is telling you, hey, we made a discovery in the year and a half you were gone. We sort of are understanding the power of these portals and rifts, and we think that the Serani were trying to get through, and they were the ones that created this giant explosion. Yeah.
And something that I didn't really write down very well in my notes, but I remember from the description of the fight and the description of the Serani city is that you mentioned there were these large purple arcane magical energy, like I don't know if they were like wells or they were
Yeah, I described them as
was.
They were like rips in the ground that had arcane pools of swirling arcane energy, but they looked really ragged, like they were actual like jagged rifts in the ground. But no one was making any attempt to close them. They just were there.
Which matched our experience in the Mornland.
Yeah, they very much matched what you see. There's a giant scar that sort of runs through the Mornland, and that's similar to the shape of the scars that you saw on a smaller scale in Solitude. Anyway,
I remember thinking right away also that how much more I liked Jaunt as the leader than I liked Usador. Jaunt was very cool and collected, and Usador was loud and boisterous, and I don't know. I had both I and my character did not trust Usador very much at all, and
for good reason.
Pretty excited to have the 12 under the leadership of Jaunt instead.
John, before when Tam met her for the first time, Tam was an Eladrin, and Jaunt was also an Eladrin, and Eladrin are very rare outside of their towers in Eberron. And
Right.
I remember Joe, the player, saying his character was a shy and not really wanting to engage with this other Eladrin. Do you have anything else to add there, Joe?
Yeah, well, Tam was married, and when the day of mourning happened, his face spire was separated from where he was separated from his home plane of Polanis, and he couldn't get home to his wife. She was pregnant at the time, so as far as Tam knew, he had a new kid at home. He was just like wanting to get back to him. And so then there was this very attractive, very powerful Eladrin wizard, and it was like awkward, man. I don't know.
Yep. Right. But Jaunt, as a leader of the 12, she's measured, she's moderate, she's honest, she is strong and decisive, but not boisterous like Usador was. Usador was very much shoot from the hip, and everything has to be a grandiose gesture, and there's only one way, his way. And so, yeah, I did that intentionally too, because I very much as a DM saw your guys' reaction to Usador too. Originally, from the beginning, it was entertaining, and then later on, I thought, boy, this guy isn't the greatest leader when it comes down to it. He's sort of running off the page, and
He just kept sending person after person through the portal, hoping that they'd fix the problem or do something. Like he obviously didn't. I don't know.
yeah, he sort of had the mindset of just human toilet paper, trying to plug a hole, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So.
No.
Anyway,
I like Jaunt much better. The other thing that we didn't really, when we came back, we didn't really talk about a whole lot. I don't know if other people thought about the impact, but we were gone 2 years, and like that's like sense of loss of, we just like that's 2 years. If we had kids, it's 2 years of growing up that they missed. If we had family, if you had a sick parent, they might be gone now. Like,
yeah.
But we never really talked about that much as a group. I kind of like thought about what it meant for, my character, what was going on in his life and his job. His boss like sent you away on his job, and he didn't report back for 2 years.
Right.
I tried to have lived at like 300, so 2 years is like a season. So.
It's like whatever, 2 years.
No. And I tried to have the same for Phidias too. He's got long life, so 2 years maybe isn't as big a deal to him.
Yeah.
It was because, as you guys now know, he has a daughter.
Spoilers coming. Spoilers.
Those of you listening,
Stuff to come.
You can tell if you want.
You can tell us if you want. I just,
Well, you're just ruining it for everybody. That's right.
It affected Phidias. He of course, like Phidias does, like a withdrawn drow that he is, really kind of kept it inside because he hadn't shared that information with anyone. Yeah, he knew exactly what it meant when he got back and he learned that 2 years had passed. He knew.
Yeah.
And I suppose for Celestine,
didn't really matter.
He was really only a couple months old. Anyways,
yeah.
He didn't have time to. We're the only, I think, friends he's established, and you haven't really established any other family members or anything like that. So.
Right. And for Rook, it didn't matter because he didn't know what he was. He and Celestine, on some level, have the same, sort of current story, except Rook has a whole backstory that he has yet to find or really dive into, whereas Celestine just plain doesn't have a backstory. There's nothing before his inception. There's nothing before that. So.
Celestine's backstory is basically undiscovered lore.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, it could also have to do with, maybe a connection with other Warforged that also don't have a backstory, and also maybe want to try to find a connection to meaning and to community. But
so one thing that Celestine didn't, I think that he kind of shared it a little bit. He knew very little of. He knew about the Lord of Blades, and after having met the one true creator, and because he was having kind of a little bit of a crisis of faith, not knowing like what do I believe in, what do I stand for, like is my deity even real? No one else seems to know who this is except for me. And after having that really deep connection when we went to Solitude, it sort of became Celestine's mission to evangelize other Warforged and also stop the Lord of Blades.
Yeah. Yeah, and lore there's a lot in the actual printed lore of Eberron about the Lord of Blades, and that will come up more in our story. But you guys have the ability to go and read about what what the Lord of Blades is in the actual setting of Eberron, and you'll hear more about what it is in our story. So.
So we did kind of breeze over the meeting with the one true creator. Was there anything else that happened that came out as far as the origin of the one true creator, or how there's a connection to Celestine? Celestine was spare parts in the Mournland.
I mean, so
Or
if you follow the logic, though, he wasn't. Celestine was not spare parts in the Mournland. Was created by the Serani. Like the Serani had taken over that forge, and they were creating Warforged using the artificer sort of knowledge and abilities of those they turned into revenants, and the technology that that House Cannith sort of has discovered. And so
and
the
Kalamachia too, was she involved somewhat in that?
yeah, I mean, you guys don't know at what level she was involved in the actual supplement, because I followed, the Forbidden Forge, like, kind of encounter in the supplement. Kalmachia is sort of the guardian of the Forbidden Forge, and not really having a whole lot. Well, having something to do with the forge being operated, but in our story, you're unclear as to kind of what Kalamacha was doing there,
Right.
other than she was a formidable opponent and was controlled by the Serani. But the following the logic,
The
yeah,
only line that I remember from that, I don't know if it was one you wanted to hold on to or not, was she was the mother, like the mother of the Forge Drakes or something like that.
yeah. I think there was I think there was the takeaway from that was she was sort of she ran the forge. She was the one breathing some life into this. You don't know, how or for what reason, either to Celestine, but after Merrick Stakhanov inspected him, he basically said, "Hey, this is a really good play on my great grandfather's original technology. Like, this is cool. Like, I've never seen this before. This is really neat." And he was also impressed that you were a paladin, and he was impressed that there was the ability to connect with a deity he had never seen or heard of or met before. And so the Serani were the ones that were pretty much ultimately running this Forbidden Forge in Eston, and you can assume that all of the modifications that were done to the Warforged rolling out of that forge were added by the Serani. So the connection to the deity in their realm is strong, and it was assumed. I was hoping that it was assumed that they were the ones that instilled Celestine with that, connected that deity to the Warforged that they were creating.
That makes sense. Did we ever
Yeah.
talk about how the Serani came upon their connection to the one true creator? Because I always assumed like one true creator was something that they found in solitude after they got moved there and took it as their deity. Is that something that you talked about and I just didn't write down at one point?
Nope, it's nothing that I talked about. It's things you can metagame about, but your characters never had the opportunity to find that piece of lore. And they haven't asked enough questions or know enough about that. And it wasn't part of anything that was given to Celestine in the meeting with the one true creator. It was sort of inconsequential. That piece of information was not part of the connection. It is a discoverable piece of the lore, but at this point, your characters don't know.
All right.
So when you come back, they give you a house, and you all can kind of sit back and rest for a couple days, while John and her sort of new team of mages. That's the one thing you were asking earlier about, if anyone thought about the changes that had happened in the 2 years that you guys were gone. I did, and I tried to reflect that in sort of a change of the guard in the 12. I actually substituted out a couple of the mages with different ones, and I tried to introduce those a little bit and say, hey, things happened in 2 years, and the mages through Jaunt said, hey, we're sort of running on a limited staff here. There's been a lot of different, a lot of changes, and so bear with us while we are under construction to try and reestablish the 12 and our reasons for doing what we do. So. But that was the only thing that I really had changed in the world for you guys.
Yeah. In real time, we were in Solitude between September 17th, 2018 and March 25th of 2019. So we were in Solitude for a couple months as players, but it was just a couple of weeks as characters.
Right, exactly. So the 12 bring you back and kind of give you some options now at this point, or what was the next step? Does anyone remember?
And I gotta fess up, at this point, I think I had some in real life stuff going on because my journal ends at this point until August. So I have from March 25th to August gone. It's all by memory. I don't think I was there for it a lot.
Okay.
Cautious was in and out of Korth in the campaign for the next couple months.
Got it. But what time of the year was it? That it was March.
March 25th, we came back from Solitude. Yeah, and we went camping that July. So
right.
And I remember camping pretty well. So in April, May, June, I think it was the lead up to the camping trip that we
got it
in July.
Okay. So, and what?
I think there was small, we went to the coast, didn't you? Took a trip north
to the coast.
Yeah, yes. To the coast, like some caves or something. I don't.
Yeah. There was a trip up to the coast. I'm trying to remember at what point we covered.
Was the trip to the coast with Vakias or without Vakias?
It was without Vakias.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't show up in the story until you have already met Albertus.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So what was the reason for the trip up to the coast?
It was because there was rumors that there was a portal up at the coast. And so we were sent up there to investigate. And it's kind of just this shanty sea town, but then in the cliffs, it was built in like this, everything was carved in like this massive graveside in the cliffs with, stairs going down. It was kind of labyrinthine, but like in the face of the cliff. And so we got led down into one of the mausoleums in the cliffside and went down a level inside that, and we did discover a portal, and there were a couple of Serrani running it. And I remember that encounter was pretty disastrous for Phidias. He almost died.
So to back up just a little bit, it's a town that I made up called Ellencaster. And Jake, if you can bring up the map, I'll show sort of roughly where it is.
Let me go ahead and find it on the map.
I'm gonna take notes now since I
go ahead.
Totally.
Which
Ellencaster?
Ellencaster.
And north.
It's gonna be north of Korth, in Karnath still.
Go ahead.
And it's gonna be right there, north of the Cairnwood.
Okay, let me go ahead and get the map live for our viewers. All right, the map is live. Why don't you go ahead and ping where Korth is first?
Korth is right here again. And then the trip north to this part right here is where I created the town of Ellencaster. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And halfway through the trip up there, you encountered sort of a crossroads, and it was called Greybell. You guys remember that? There was a halfling with a sick wife, and they had just sold everything and moved to Greybell to kind of create an inn and take everything over. But there was a graveyard that was having issues. There was sort of a haunting, and you guys were you guys did some work there. You there was a some badness in the graveyard, and you kind of got rid of that. And all of a sudden, this guy and his wife were well again. They were sick before, and they're well again. And then there was a bell tower that was kind of in that town, but it looked out of place. The architecture was different. It was really weird. And you guys went up to, I think someone rang the bell or something. Does anyone remember that?
Probably cautious.
Probably cautious. Rang the bell.
Was there something about time or age with the couple?
Yeah, they were like constantly getting older.
Yeah, they were sort of bent over and kind of looking extra old. And the next day you met with them, he looked even older, and they were kind of aging prematurely.
Yeah.
And once you guys exercised the I don't exactly remember what the enemy was. I think it was a bunch of ghosts or a bunch of ghost-like creatures, geists or something. And you destroyed the Geist factory, and remember it was like poisoning the pigs or the animals around, and we're kind of becoming sick because of all that. Anyway, you pretty much just took care of the plague, and they looked younger, and they were both alive, and they thanked you and said that they were going to create a bed and breakfast there, and you could visit anytime.
And what happened with the bell when we rang the bell?
I don't remember, and I don't remember it being that significant. It just was out of place. It's sort of like a weird piece of architecture that that's why the crossroads were called Gray Bell, because the bell itself had just appeared there at some point.
But it's something happened because then they changed the name of the town. When we came back to
wasn't
later,
the bell shiny afterwards, and they called it New Bell?
They changed the name of the town to...
That's right. I remember that now. I don't remember, and it wasn't, as far as my story is concerned, it probably was a hook, but it wasn't significant because you guys didn't take the hook, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So Ellencaster was is built into the side of it's not built into the side of a cliff, but the actual structure, it's a fishing town. It was built on the face of the cliff, on a bunch of pilings on stilts. Behind that, in the recesses of the cliff, are an old dwarven fortress built into the cliff, and that's where those catacombs were that you guys were kind of going towards. Now, I have to say, I don't know. You guys didn't spend too much time in Ellencaster, but there's another D&D group that I am running, and they have spent a lot of time in Ellencaster, so they know a lot more about Ellencaster than you do. And your two groups are in the same timeline, and so they have changed things about Ellencaster that you remember, and you have changed things about Ellencaster that they discovered. And so it's fun for me because it's a very living world, and they have done things that you encountered, and you have experienced things that they have changed, and vice versa. And so they have been in the same catacombs that you have been in for different reasons. And so if you remember, you went to the harbor master and talked to Maester Aes. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think so.
Duck, but I don't remember why.
Well, he was the one that was going to tell you about the portal action, and he said that his crypt keeper had disappeared. Do you guys remember that? And so you visited the crypt keeper's house and read his manuscript. Remember, you read his manuscript
that he wrote.
Oh,
yeah,
I think so.
You guys remember that?
Like
I was
very,
not there.
very vaguely.
Yeah. Anyway, you guys read his manuscript, and then you went down into the crypt to try to find him.
Yes, I do remember that.
You do remember this, okay?
And then he was. Wasn't he trapped down there?
Yes. The reason why it's really familiar to me is because I've spent a lot of time in Ellencaster with the other D&D group, so it's very, very vivid to me. So anyway, but you guys went down and you found this portal, sort of the end of a crypt labyrinth, and there were Serani coming out of it, right? That you can remember.
Yes, there was like 3 or 4 of them that were guarding a portal.
Right.
Remember that.
Yes. And Phidias, what do you remember about that encounter?
Well, I remember chaos being rolled and something coming out, snaking around my neck and choking me.
Yes.
All right.
What was it?
That's what caused
what
me
was
to go into my death saving throws, basically, for the
Yeah.
entire
You almost died
encounter.
in that.
I was. Yeah, Phidias could have been no more.
Then
was really
the
close.
DM would have been in big trouble.
I mean, the DM would have had to flex and roll with the story and kind of figured out another direction, which would have been fun. It wouldn't have been a big deal. So
Just wait, yeah. The Serani find out that you killed the Mazarak.
Yeah.
Mazarak. Mazarak.
All right.
But it would be fun, wouldn't it? I mean, it would be a wild ride if that happened.
You can't let Phidias get too big for his britches.
True.
So
That's right. Keep him hung.
So do you guys remember? Did the portal close? What do you remember? What happened at the end there?
Did we close the portal or did they close the portal?
I think
We
it
killed
just closed, didn't it?
Serani and the portal closed, either because they were trying to hold it open and now there's no one to do that, or that's kind of what I thought I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
What did the Serani fight like? Like, did they fight with metal weapons, with wood weapons, with magic?
They had their wood weapons, didn't they?
They had their magical wood weapons, the dark gray kind of like slate
Metal
gray colored lacquered wooden weapons and lacquered wooden armor.
Okay.
They were very effective. I mean, they definitely were effective. I think they did have some ability to wield magic too, but mainly they were swinging at you with these sharp, somewhat magical wooden weapons.
So you killed the Serani, the portal closed, and then you decided to go back to Korth?
Yes.
No, didn't. I seem to recall us taking some prisoners.
Prisoners.
We had
Serani
one.
prisoners?
We had one, and we took him back to where the 12 was. We took him back to where was it? Karth?
Korth.
Karnath?
Oh,
Yeah,
you did-
yeah, you did. Did you take him back? I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, so that they could interrogate him.
Right.
Wow, okay. So you captured a Serani. I'm glad I'm writing this down now.
And to my knowledge, he is still there.
Being interrogated.
Yeah. Being interrogated.
Well, the 12 did capture before we got there. The first time they had captured a Serani and he escaped with a portal. So
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe this one. I don't know.
Right. So you got back to Korth. You delivered the Serani. You told John about the portal and how it closed, and John said, "Oh, we'll go send somebody to check it out." And you just were sort of the forward detachment to kind of scout it. And she said that she would send a team to go take care of it or see what was going on there. And then she said, "Hey, so here's another thing. Our beloved ruler, Caius III, hasn't been seen. He's the ruler of Karnath, lives in the palace in Korth, and we're a little bit worried about him. There have been rumors of necromancy and the like, and so if you don't mind, we need you to kind of see if he's okay.
Necromancy and Karnat? What?
Yeah, shock and awe. For those of you that don't know the lore, in the Great War, the nation of Karnath, they used to, well, they still do, but they raise their dead in order to fight alongside them, and it's a great honor as a warrior, as a soldier, to be raised from the dead to fight again, and that was one of their main defensive tactics in the Great War, was to hire a bunch of necromancers and have an undead army. An undead army of former soldiers that were glorious in life and willing to fight in death. Anyway, so it's not that uncommon to have that or know that about Korth or about all of Karnath and in the way they fought in the Great War. So not too big of a shock.
Kind of a militaristic nation. So it's
Honor bound, militaristic.
not too surprising that they, as a nation, embraced whatever means to gain a military advantage.
Right.
And
right.
it wasn't. I guess it's
in their own way. They create their own soldiers, just like creating the Warforged. They just created an undead army, so to speak.
That's right. That's right.
All I can.
It's not too yeah. It's not too far past any level of understanding for people in Korth and the community in Karnath to understand like that whole concept. So when the 12 said, "Hey, necromancy, find out what's happening with Caius III," you guys were sort of like, "Oh, okay, we can do that." Do you guys remember what the first steps were?
We were trying to find a contact. Weren't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't we go into the that pub?
That's where we learned about Johnny Page.
Again, for my other D&D group listening to this, they are very familiar with Johnny Page as well. They ran across it in a different way. But Johnny Page has a wonderful history and notoriety in both worlds. And did you guys go to Artur first? Or did you go to the Writhing Rot Grub first?
I believe they went to a city like maybe south and east of Korth that I don't remember why they wanted to get to the city, but it was like a day trip, a side trip. And I think along the way, I remember they got there and there was security. They couldn't get in. They couldn't see what was going on, but they did note that there were wagons that would come from outside, I think from the Mornland or outside of Karnath, and be brought into this city. And the people driving the wagons had big, huge plague masks on. Because in the back of their cart, it was just piled full of rotting, or bodies, corpses. And those carts were allowed access into this city.
Right. So when the 12 sort of gave you the rundown on Caius III, they said he is either in the palace in Korth or he might be spending time at Artur. And if you can bring up the map, I will splash the city of Artur.
Yep. Give me just a second here.
Which is right here.
I have to find the right window. All right. All right, the map is live for our viewers.
Are we all laughing at Jeremiah's text? Yes.
We're all laughing at the same thing.
It is to the east of Korth, on the other side of the Nightwood, and it is a city that is a military city, and it is completely devoted to necromancy and the raising of soldiers. And so the offer was, you know, Caius might be at his castle, or he might be also spending time at Artur. And you guys decided to investigate Artur first, and so that is why you took that trip. And so
It was a
when
great
you got to the
failure.
gate, you saw exactly what Joe was describing. You saw wagons of dead bodies going in, and you you had an interesting experience. Well, Rook had an interesting experience that night with mushrooms that came back into play from the very, 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 very beginning of our campaign.
What?
Episode 1 of our retelling of this, Enceladus took some mushrooms and disappeared. And although actually, I think this time it was. Did you guys get a potion of invisibility? What,
Yeah, that's right. It was a
get a
potion
potion
of
of
invisibility
invisibility?
that
It
we
wasn't.
used.
It wasn't mushrooms. It was.
Yeah.
I think you had gotten a potion of invisibility from somewhere. Someone gave it to you or something.
It was
and
from
we
the
gave
Rod
it,
of Chaos.
Was it?
Yeah.
and we gave it
Oh
to
yes,
Rook?
it was. It totally. Well, that's the thing.
With the
So
Rod of
we needed
Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
the Rod of Chaos made a potion of invisibility one time. I
That
remember
was the same encounter that the Rod of Chaos made a really delicious keg of ale.
That's right. I remember
would-
that.
What would have made us give us an invisibility potion to Rook of all people?
Well,
Because
Rook
he had
was
the
going
best
to.
stealth.
He what?
Yeah,
He had the best stealth stat out of all of us.
yeah, he had
And
the
he was
best stealth
dead.
stat.
So we're like, if you get caught, you just pretend to be dead, I guess.
Right. I mean, that's
I
it.
remember
So,
that thought.
so he was going to get into the city gates by becoming invisible, or no. First, he just like hid under. Didn't he hide in one of the wagons?
Yeah. remember that.
So he didn't take the invisibility potion yet. He just hid in one of the wagons and then made his way through a bunch of crazy corridors and looking for something. And I remember Jake too. That night was like it was his show. Like he was the one. He was doing everything, and everyone else was just
Yeah.
sort of watching. And I was
So,
describing what he
Just
saw.
a player aside here. A lot of the times whenever we play, we do a lot of metagaming, just trying to make the best decision possible, and sometimes that can lead to really, really long decision making. And
Yes.
occasionally it's really fun to completely stop the metagaming and put someone right, like throw them into the fire. And we made the decision to do that. We said, canonically, we're not with you. We cannot give you any advice, and we all stopped talking, and it
Yeah,
was
that's right,
just
yep.
Jake. We didn't. I mean, we reacted to the things that he did by either laughing because it was really funny, but
Really
we
funny,
just
yeah.
we're like, you're alone, buddy. I cannot comment on anything that you do.
He said he was really freaked out. Like he was sort of like this is really freaky. I don't know what to do. And I kept describing, and then there's a corridor that goes deeper, and then there's a turn, and then there's a thing here, and then there's footsteps coming from this direction. And he was like really getting involved. Like
Oh,
he
jeez.
was oh geez. He was
Oh,
getting
jeez.
really
Oh, jeez.
involved in the role playing part of it. He didn't really discover anything important. He just kind of popped out and tried to escape and had to drink the invisibility potion.
No, he got a book when he was down there.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, he got a book, a necromancy book. I forgot. You're totally
He was
right.
like, I found a book. Do I take it? Do I take it, guys? And he's looking at us,
Do I
and we're
read it?
just like,
You're like,
Oh my gosh. Jake's not here, so we got to decide that we have to make this happen more often. I can think of 2 other times when Jake has been on his own without anybody else around, and it's gone
Yep.
really,
I love
really
that book
well
was.
both times.
yep. it totally is.
I'll have to check. He might still be listening into the call.
Oh yeah.
I don't see
No,
him.
he's not in here.
No, he dropped off.
Another aside on the metagaming. there are some times when, if you guys are not really allowed to metagame but are doing it, that I will just I will create the illusion of time passing and opportunities being passed by. So I'll say something like, and then this happens. And then you guys keep chatting about it. And then I say, and then this happens. And then the door closes. And then, so it's sort of to shortcut your metagame.
The ship is
you
getting
could
further away. The
Yep,
ship is
whenever
pulling
Exactly,
away.
yeah.
whenever that boat floated off that had
Yeah.
Right,
the
right.
Yeah,
And so,
that's right.
I mean, I don't want to just tell you guys, hey, stop metagaming, let's play the game. I was trying really hard to kind of like make it real. Like the boat is floating away, and now it's a little bit further away, and now it's on the horizon. Right. And so anyway, it's yeah. I like that, and I like that you guys default to metagaming sometimes, so that I have the opportunity to give you a sense of urgency with my descriptions. But I did like this moment when Jake did not have any support from you guys about like, hey, what should I do, guys? And you're like, nope, we can't say anything. It's all you, bud.
I
So-
forget what it was that inspired that, but I remember we were all immediately on board.
Yeah.
So much fun, yeah.
And I think part of it was Jake is a newer player to D&D, so almost every decision that he makes has to have the approval of the party. And we're like, at some
Yeah.
point, man, you gotta take the training wheels off. And so we took the training wheels off and pushed him down the hill.
Yeah. So he found a book, he didn't find really anything else, any other evidence. He found a book and made it to the point where he was going to be discovered. He had to drink an invisibility potion, and then he had to wait it out because you guys didn't know how much of the invisibility potion to drink because it lasted for a certain amount of time, and you guys didn't have any idea from this potion that was just dropped off from the Rod of Chaos one time what the potency was, what the duration was. And so he's like, guys, I think I'm going to drink part of it. How much of it should I drink? And you guys are like, I mean, we can't tell you.
Can't tell you.
And so he drank some of it and just had to sit there for the opportunity to get out. And it was it was really tense. And I'm glad that he had that opportunity because it made for great story and great entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
So it's so good. At that point, you guys.
Sometime in the near future, just let me come across one more model of something fun like that to give to Rook, and then we'll all leave it.
Yeah. So after he came out, you guys sort of decided, hey, well maybe we should where are the wagons coming from? And they were coming from the south, which is direct. Like you followed the wagon tracks to the edge of the Mournland, and you thought, oh man, maybe we need to sort of see where they're getting all these bodies and stop it, or I don't remember what the motivation was there. But you all decided to go into the Mournland at that point, following the track.
That's right.
We wanted to. I think the rationale was that we knew that it may or may not have something to do with the king, and we wanted to get our own information before being fed a story and a song and a dance when we eventually came and found him. So we wanted to know what was going on with any supposed necromancy, and it also kind of raised a bunch of awareness with us, realizing, okay, something's amiss here. You know, there shouldn't be any forages and there shouldn't be any necromancy, so we need to see if the Serani have anything to do with this. Because when it came to any of the Warforged and the forges, the Serani did have something to do with that. Either that or just, Merrick's being Merrick's. So that was kind of the rationale between us, like, hey, let's go ahead and follow this lead, see where it takes us.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the same time, we were also not really sure how to find a lead to get in with the king in the first place.
Right. So you followed these wagon tracks, sort of, kind of a little ways into the Mournland, and you kind of discovered this. It was sort of like a tomb, right? I mean, it was sort of like an underground area that there were some mages, some necromancers that were, or they're warforged that were piling bodies from this tomb onto the wagons. and then there were some mages and a couple of like homunculi, or they're like raised like fleshy beasts or something like that that were all kind of sewn together.
Was this our Halloween session?
Yes. Yes, it was. And there were ghosts. Remember how you walked, you kind of went through an area and the ghosts were like, they didn't fight you unless you fought them, and they just like, they would let you pass, but not really. Why was it Halloween? Because that doesn't fit the timeline.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Maybe it doesn't. I know that at some point we had. I think it might have been earlier on.
Okay.
This would have been like April or May or June or
Mhm.
I
July.
think we missed something.
What year?
What did we miss?
I
Yeah,
think we missed the fact that my character was here at this spot.
Yeah.
You weren't
so
playing. Oh yeah, you weren't.
I was there because I remember I was trying to use my messenger to get us out.
So what had happened is we were trying to get our lead, and we went to the whole we went through the whole bachelor party thing. I don't remember the
right.
name of that character, but
Oh.
he seriously owed us.
That's
And
right.
this is why we decided, another one of the reasons why we decided to follow the lead, um, because we wanted to just give it some time to cool off. So
Yeah.
That's right.
we skipped over the introduction of Vakias entirely.
We did, and I know how that happened, and you're totally right. We did. So backing up to when.
So everything that we just talked about, it happened after August. It all happened in that order, but it just happened a little later.
Yes, it happened in that order, but it happened a little bit later. We missed a chunk. We missed a chunk in the middle.
And that chunk in the middle took place during our first annual D&D camping trip.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. So if we back up in the story to where the 12 said, "Hey, we are worried about Caius the Third, and we need you to sort of like figure out if he's okay." And we have someone that can help you get into the castle. And you'll meet him at the pub, the Writhing Rock Grub. And there was a vague instruction that you'll know him when you see him, sort of thing.
In court.
In course, yeah. And so everyone made it to the Writhing Rock Grub.
And just to
And
this is important to set aside. At this point in time, Pickles the Druid wandered off to find Pickles, never to be seen again.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yes.
Yes.
he just left.
Alex left our group, and his character just kind of wandered off into the streets of Korth to search for pickled items. Anything more to say about that, Jake?
And we didn't go look for him because the player was gone and we knew we wouldn't find him.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we knew role playing here. We knew that he can turn into bugs, and we're not going to find him unless he wants to be found.
Yeah.
Metagaming is, metagaming hat on now. That player character was more chaotic than us as far as playing the game goes. This is my brother-in-law Alec, and
And that's saying something.
his he plays the game a different way than we do. If you're stuck in a situation where you could die, his belief is you should die and you will. And that is very much not how we play the game. We're very story oriented. And that's okay. Some people play the game that way. It's not very conducive whenever we're, a group of mostly married men who can, if we're lucky, get together once every 2 weeks. If your character dies and you get a total party wipe, to just start over the entire campaign that we've been working on for, at this point, this was what, 3 years in?
Yeah, 4
Yeah.
years in.
3 or 4 years in. That's we've just kind of made the decision that's not the game that we're going to play. And I think it was totally fine that he decided to exit because there were quite a few times where he was like, I'm going to do this thing. I have the tools to do it. I'm going to make it happen. An example of that being the escape from the prison in Solitude.
Yes, that's right. We talked about that last episode.
Yeah. And so
Right.
he wandered off to look for pickles, never to be seen again.
Yeah, and yeah, I didn't have hardly any conversation with him about anything, and so for that to happen was I had to scramble, but you know, it sort of was I mean, it was what it was. He wanted to play a different game than what we were playing. I think I was fairly clear that it is a story driven game and not a like combat driven game for what we were doing. You know, if it's a story driven game, it also takes away your min maxing, your desire to create a perfect character that can kill anything. It's and if your character is going to die, it will be for a story reason and not for necessarily for a dumb combat reason. If on a technicality you get a few bad rolls and die, I feel like that's kind of a lame way to go. I mean, it would be a good story, but there's a lot of it's a big decision to take away one of your main story characters. Like, you know, it's a big decision to do that, and so I don't take it lightly, and I don't intend for any reason other than really good story to allow any one of my party members to die. And so yeah, if that's the way he wanted to play, we weren't definitely seeing eye to eye on that. So anyway, would love to have him back, but it's it is what it is. So the
So I
group
think
was
at some point I remember a list given back to the story. I think John gave
Yeah.
us a list of like a couple of contacts that we could meet, and this might be some more DM magic forcing a card, because there was a list of people, and one of the people on the list had Sir in his name, and
Yes.
so we were like, oh, that's the guy. This one, he has Sir. Let's make him our contact.
Right. So I love the Writhing Rock Grub. It's an inn, and you walked into it and saw just a wide variety of characters sitting at different tables, entertaining you, serving you alcohol, cleaning things, the whole wait staff. Every one of those characters in that pub had a backstory and a few quests for you. Every one of them. And so you
Even
had
probably the instrument in there, probably.
even the instrument. It had a backstory and probably a quest that you could derive from it. But if you remember, there was a Goliath who he either had a tambourine or something, and he was playing. Oh no, he's playing the bagpipes or the squeeze box or something. He was up on the little stage in the corner taking requests. There was you remember that guy? Yeah. There was a barrel-chested sailor who was chatting him up, and not in that way, but he was very much making the requests, and most of them were sea shanties, and he was doing a little jig. There was a couple warriors that were kind of sitting at a table. There was a little a little halfling that was cleaning things. There was the bartender, the barmaid. There were some funny guys in the corner that were kind of shifty-eyed, eating stuff. And you guys were introduced to the libation called Johnny Page.
Johnny Page.
Ding. Can anyone describe Johnny Page to me?
Maybe I should.
The first thing, obviously, is that anytime somebody says or orders Johnny Page in the bar, the whole bar goes, Johnny Page!
Down the table, and a bell is rung. Yep.
But that's all I know about it.
That's right.
Doug.
I forget how we asked, how we found out about Johnny Page. Whether it was like trying to buy a drink for someone, and we were
They
told it was his
asked
favorite
for,
drink.
yeah.
So Phidias was sitting at the bar next to this really quiet guy, and he asked him what he was drinking, and the guy said, "Well, I'm drinking Johnny Page," and then the bar erupts.
Johnny Page.
And immediately Phidias's like his curiosity was piqued, and he said, "Well, let me try some of that." And the guy said, "No, you don't want to try any of that." And Phidias said, "Oh, yes, I do." And so he had some, and the bar wench was sort of like handing it to you very carefully and saying, like, you know, are you okay? And he just downs it, and it's an amazingly hot, burning alcohol, and you simply belch just a little puff of fire, and then and nothing happens to you, and everyone is
So
impressed.
Leading up to this, there was I mean, I had to do I think it was do a check. You made
Yeah.
me roll for a check after I took the shot, and I
Yeah.
passed. And so that's when you said, you feel a little rumbling in your tummy, and you just belch some fire, and you're fine.
Yep.
And at that point, it was continue because there's more that happens.
Yes, it was a constitution check, right? What more happens?
One of the other of our party try it, and I want to say I think it was Rook.
I don't remember who tried it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was Rook.
And I can't remember what happened to him, but I remember it was so bad that he ended up out back.
He
and kind of tossed
he
out
ended up
to the alley.
belching onto a table, and the table caught on fire, and they threw
That's
him
right.
out. They threw him and the table outside.
That's right. Yeah, Rook can't handle his Johnny Page, so
It's like that
Johnny
scene in Back to the
Page.
Future 3. Like, do you remember Back to the Future 3 when they're in like the Old West and Doc walks into the bar
Yes.
and like they pour that whiskey and it's like burning on the table and yeah, he goes
Yep.
out into the horse, trough. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like that.
So Phidias, at that point, didn't you buy a bottle of it?
We're thinking it was that awesome. I think it was my experience belching the fire, and I thought, okay, that's a cool party trick. And then what happened to poor Rook, I thought maybe I should have a bottle of this on hand, and it's my strange liqueur collection, because it's not the only thing I've tried to collect along the way.
Right. Exactly.
Because I'm always thinking, you never know when I can use this. Could be fun, slip someone a Mickey at the right time, just
Right.
depending on the circumstance. So I'm always thinking, or if I need to show how badass I am, I can just take a shot of it in front of somebody and belch some fire and see what they do.
That's right.
Just thought it'd be kind of cool to have in the belt.
Does anyone remember anything else that was?
Can tell who among us was a frat boy, right?
All right, guilty as charged.
Does anyone remember what else was on the menu as far as alcohol?
Mm-mm.
Page.
Not.
Maybe
There was something called black absinthe.
They had that there.
Was that
was
on the
it?
menu there?
Yeah, they did, and it was offered to you, and you're like, no, I don't want that.
Really?
I do not remember that.
Interesting.
That is
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, that is good for us to know for future.
Yeah.
Future
it is.
things.
No, for the future. Black absinthe and Johnny Page both exist they exist in both D&D circles that I run, and it's significant to both parties in a big
Oh.
way.
So the rotting rot grub sells black absinthe.
The writhing rock grub sells black absinthe.
Writhing.
Legal,
Right.
right?
Gosh.
Yeah.
It depends on who you ask.
Depends on who you ask. That's right. Okay, so you guys hang out, you hear some sea shanties, you kind of talk to the local color, and suddenly this flourishy gentleman in flashy clothes flounces his way through the front door, demanding food and drink, and sits down at a table. And you guys say, ooh, that's our guy.
The
Because we're all
lamplighter.
we're
Oh,
all
yeah, doesn't he manage lamplighters or something?
He's
He's
the
like the head of
assistant, the assistant head lamplighter.
it? Yes.
illusions.
And-
Assistant to the head lamplighter.
To the
He's a very
His
important
name-
guy.
Is Albertus Quinneran.
Sir.
Oh, Alberto.
Sir Albertus.
Sir.
And he is saying that he is full of himself is a drastic understatement. He is-
He's
Quinnerlin?
a guy.
Quinneran.
Quinnerin.
He is a peak. He is the pinnacle of egoism and self-importance. And yeah, you guys immediately say, "Ooh, this is our guy," because he promises that he can get you to see the king. He can get you because he's so important. He can get you through the front door and get you an appointment and audience with the king. And he says, "But I need you to do something for me." What is that thing?
Was this the bachelor party thing?
This is
Yes.
the bachelor party.
This is the
Okay.
bachelor
He needs
party.
us to procure an exotic beast to make the groom feel powerful so that he can kill
Oh,
it during the
yeah.
bachelor party.
That's right. So he is putting on. He is the best man for one of his friend's wedding, and he has to make the bachelor party a party to remember. I, I don't know if you guys have probably seen the show How I Met Your Mother. I modeled Albertus after Barney because of just how full of it he is of himself and how willing to bend all rules to party he does. So so this party was going to be legendary, and he was going to try really hard to get the best entertainment. And so he gave you guys the task to try to find a beast that could be slain by the guests, but something that was dangerous and powerful. And he says, "I don't care how you get it. I need it at the party." And so you guys say, "That's awesome if you can get us in to see the king." And he says, "Oh, of course I can get you in to see the king. Don't worry about that. Just worry about my party." And so you guys go and try to solve this problem. But do you remember where you went to try and get information about this?
I don't remember this.
Was it university?
No, there's an antique store. Someone turned you on to an antique store.
You guys were thinking about getting one of those not a totem, but like it was a figurine that like it would become a creature
Yes.
for a period of time.
Same store. They sold the leash.
Right. So you went to a shop called The Collection,
That's right.
and it was owned by Delazangar Inca, and he goes by Zanger. And he is a very interesting collector. He's sort of like the Indiana Jones of Eberron.
Say his name one more time.
Delizangar, Delizangar, Inca, Inka.
Okay.
And he, you went into his shop, and I think at this point, I want to say that Gers was still with us because he was very interested in all of the items, all of the very, very unique items that Zhang had in his shop. And there were small figurines that turned into animals. There was there were enchanted reins, like this lasso. You could lasso around a creature and have it follow your every whim. And you guys thought that would be the best way to go, to find some wild creature and to control it with a lasso. And he said there's someone that might actually be able to help you, and he's a druid, and he plays with spiders for fun, and he might be able to help you with your problem. He lives outside of Reckonwood, which is a town that's west of Korth. And he said he keeps giant spiders in a labyrinth. He says, I don't know exactly what he does, but he might be willing to help you with your task. His name is Vakias, and he is a big fella. And if you ask around Reckonmark, you'll be able to find him quickly. And so you guys were needing a giant beast to fight, or to have Albertus's wedding party fight for fun, and you were turned on to this druid who had giant spiders that might be able to help you, named Vakias. And Vakias is Jeremiah's character. So, I think you guys, at this point, you decided to head to Reckonmark, but in real time, Joe's character needed to take a break. And Joe, do you feel like revealing the bargain that I presented to you behind the DM screen?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember the timing of the events, because we met Vakias, actually met him on the camping trip.
Yes, we did.
Right.
It was in July.
And I think that Cautious left after the camping trip.
Right, but before that, before you actually left this antique store,
he made
this offer to you.
Yeah, and the offer was that I didn't have the money, the funds.
You wanted to buy a particular item.
Right, I wanted to buy an even fly. It was it's like the Onyx Steed, in that it's a small figurine that you can activate, and it turns into a big creature that you could fly around on. Because
that's right.
How cool would that be? I mean, it'd be useful in combat. It'd be useful for getting around. It had an overland flight speed. It was just the coolest thing.
Very cool. You could be flying around on a fly, a giant fly.
Yeah.
And you had your eye on it, and so I made you an offer, and it was, if you had the opportunity to meet Zhang in the Demon Wastes and spend some time treasure hunting with him, he would pay you with this fly, because he needed someone who could help him go after this special ruby he was looking for. And so there was a period of time after you found Vakias and after you traveled, to Arcanix, and there was a much story that happened, and then you yourself had a personal hiatus from adventuring, right. And we role played on the side what that you were going to go and help Zhang look for the, right.
Yeah.
And there were several roles that I had you do in order to determine whether you actually were successful in helping Zhang find the ruby and to get this figurine.
Right.
And you failed all those roles.
Yeah. There was like one marginally successful thing where I made a little bit of gold or something, but everything else was like,
yeah, that was a behind.
We didn't get the fly.
No, didn't. And that was a behind the screen. No one else knew about that. You just were gone. And if you would have shown back up with a fly, there would have been a story to tell.
Right.
But there wasn't, and you just said, all right, whatever. I'm just not, we're not talking about that. So anyway, I thought that was kind of fun. We are going to find Vakias and talk about that encounter we had at the camping trip, and then probably pause for this particular installment of the recap.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys went to Reckonmark. You asked around and found this hut in the outskirts in the forest, and there was a big labyrinth, a big hedge maze that was next to this hut. Does anyone recall how that went down?
I remember you guys entered the hedge maze, and all of a sudden you guys noticed that things were crawling around the edges, and as you made your way closer to the center, you guys had to. Weren't you guys being chased by a giant spider?
They were killing your spiders.
Yes, they were.
Right.
I remember
we
that.
were.
And
Yeah.
and to set the physical stage, we had traveled out into the woods and we were on a camping trip, sitting at a wooden picnic bench, and we had an actual labyrinth on a picnic table,
Mm-hmm.
and we were
Yeah.
tromping around, playing D&D in the woods. That's
Yes, that was a pretty cool time because I've always wanted to play D&D in the woods with my friends, and we got to do that
very
that
cool.
time, and years following we have done that. But that was a really fun experience for the first time. You know, we dressed up a little bit. We kind of did a little bit of cosplay, and ate good food, and had this time where we could invite a brand new character into the game in such a wonderful, fun way. And Jeremiah, who had been with us for quite a while playing Rook, could now have his own character to play in the game, and I thought that was pretty cool, pretty fun.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. So I think that's where we'll pause this installment of the recap, and next week pick it up, where Bacchius was helping us find a ferocious beast, and the craziness and the twists and turns that ensued. Because I think the very next set of events is one of my most favorite and most powerful events of the entire campaign to date, in my mind. And so I'm excited to share that with you all next episode.
That's right.
So,
Thanks for taking the time.
if you guys wouldn't mind, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Check out the other videos that are on there. If you missed recaps 1 through 4, they're uploaded, as well as this one will be available to watch after the fact. I've heard that these are enjoyable in podcast format, but once we start playing, you'll want to actually see what's going on. So the recaps are quite consumable like a podcast, and the actual gameplay, you'll want to be a part of that.
Yep. Our goal is to recap to current story state, and then to pick up with live play, and still record and post those, but also offer those as a live stream on YouTube. So stay tuned. Ask questions in the comments if you want. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night, everybody.
Goodbye.